regarding the album, I was curious, how and when did you come up with the idea of doing a cover album? Why did you choose this approach?
I think there was such a great response to my version of Believe by Cher at the Kennedy Center Honors, which, it was a cover that really changed the feel of the song. We did like a ballad version with strings, and also there's always been a lot of love for what I did on American Idol, which was also often really changing the songs around. And I'm working on another project actually on the side that I started at the beginning of the pandemic. It's like a concept album, which will be a musical, but that's a longer process because there's a lot more people involved, and you got to get the story right. So I'm continuing to work on that. But in the meantime, I definitely said, like, God, it would be great if we could put some music out. And the cover album idea came up, and I thought this would be a great challenge actually right now. And even though I'm not writing original music, it still allows me to get into the studio and be creative and put something together that'll entertain people. And that's what I'm about. It was like a 2-month process, I think. So that was another reason why to do covers, because we thought, well, let's just, let's do something fast and get it out there. And my fans are so wonderful and supportive, and I wanted to give them new music.
And I feel like it's quite an eclectic collection of songs you've put together. So why did you choose the songs?
The criteria was pretty open. I think for me, one of the things was I wanted there to be songs that I could relate to, that could be part of my life story and my experience. And also, I think some of the songs I was also drawn to probably just because they have a great melody. And also all the songs I felt like I needed to be able to really reinvent them, or else there was no point of putting them on the album. So that was another point as well.
Any songs which may not have made the cut? Is there anything left from the process?
Honestly, we put the thing together so swiftly that there was a lot of pre-planning, and there was, the list was narrowed down very specifically. We didn't want to waste any time, so everything that was on the list was what we ended up doing. So there was no like rejects. There were definitely a few songs that we gave a first pass on, and they didn't quite sound what interesting enough or what I wanted. So we went back in and reworked them.
Some of the songs you did have been covered and remixed, sampled, interpreted a lot of times. Did you take any inspiration from already existing versions of them, or try to come up with your own?
I definitely. Whenever I do a cover, I try to go on, streaming and look at as many different versions of it as I can, just to get ideas and to hear possibilities. I think I was probably influenced by all of it, but I definitely came with a lot of my own ideas as well, which was really exciting. For example, with West Coast by Lana Del Rey, I heard that song. It's my favorite Lana Del Rey song. And I was listening to how bluesy it was. And I thought, well, you can take a blues song and then add like a lot of electric guitars to it and play it really heavy, and it becomes sort of like Led Zeppelin, and that was sort of the directive that I had for that song. I was like, let's make it a Robert Plant style version of the song. Very similarly, like with Sex on Fire, I thought to myself, when this song came out, I remember seeing them at Coachella, and Coachella in general is just such a nice memory for me. My first Coachella, I was, probably 24, and it's a festival and everyone's partying and it's really euphoric and psychedelic and all that. And I wanted to inject the song with that energy. So I think we did that quite well. And then songs like Ordinary World, which are, it's an older song, it's very familiar. I just thought, wouldn't it be cool to make it a bit darker and really focus on the lyrics of it? Same with Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? We took it and we made it more kind of moody and kind of brooding and rhythmic. Yeah, and then obviously Holding Out for Hero was another one where I love the original song. It's such a guilty pleasure. It's so camp. And I thought, why not make it like a glam rock type song and give it some muscle, and I love how it turned out.
You approach every song in your own way. There's no Like there's no general blueprint to the way you work?
Yeah, I think everything's different. I mean, it depends on who you're working with a lot of the time. I think, every producer sort of has their own process. And I was really lucky to work with a handful of producers on this that are all really cool, really talented, and it was very collaborative, which was great. All of the producers are brilliant at bringing amazing ideas to the table, and then I brought my ideas to the table. I think with this, because the songs were already written, that takes one big step out of the process. So we were able to dive right in because we knew what song we were doing. So it's a bit of a shortcut. But yeah, I mean, with Tommy English, who did Sex on Fire and West Coast and Getting Older, that was a very free-form experience. He had some instrumentalists he brought in a drummer, he brought in a bass player. We just sat and we hung out and just like experimented with different sounds and rhythms and hooks, and those were very organic processes. And then some of the other ones, like Chandelier was an example of a song where Mark Crew, who's an amazing producer from the UK, he had like laid out a basic track for it ahead of time. And he had this brilliant idea of sort of referencing Soundgarden, that guitar line that's in the verse. It's a little bit Black Hole Sun. And I immediately thought that was really cool because I love Soundgarden. I think they're great.
Have you shown some of the material you've did to artists you've covered? Like, has Lana Del Rey reacted to your version of West Coast?
I think all of the managers were contacted, and we've gotten we haven't had anybody say stop. Boy George actually is a friend of mine, and I sent him Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, and he really loved it, which was a really nice thing to hear. He's we've become friendly over the years in the UK. He's hilarious, and he's such a trailblazer, and I don't know if he gets enough credit for that, but I always see him that way. And I think he was delighted to see what we did with the song, because I think that song is probably the most radically transformed in many ways. We've completely rearranged the structure of the song. It's like the verse is now the chorus and vice versa, and and changed the rhythm of the hook, and yeah, I think he liked it, and that meant a lot to me.
One last question about the material, because Queen is noticeably absent, and I kind of wondered if there isn't kind of an appeal to, because you've worked on so many of the songs, to take these songs into the studio as well. Yeah.
Well, put out a live album over the pandemic, and that shot to #1 in the UK, which was very exciting. I just figured, it's a little redundant at this point for me to put a Queen song on this album, because I've been performing Queen for the last decade. A lot of people have come to our shows and have been very entertained. We put that live album out. I just wanted to do something other than that for this. I love those guys, and I am continuously like honored to be performing with them on stage and to sing the incredible music of Queen. I think, and that's not done. I mean, I think we're going to probably do another tour. So I just wanted to flex a different muscle,
I really enjoyed the idea, and I enjoyed the way you did it. So is it something you plan on doing again? Is this, or just a one-off?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, it's definitely not impossible to do it again. I also want to make more original music. That's definitely, something that I love doing. And like I said, I have this concept album that I'm working on. So that will come out eventually. And I don't know. I never say never to anything.
All right. Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on the concept album? You said it's musical.
It's musical. I'm not giving away too much about what it's about yet, but I will say that it's about a real person. So it's based on a true story, and it takes place in the 1970s in New York City. And it's quite queer.
Which kind of segues perfectly into the next part. I've noticed that you have been critical recently about the projected potential casting of Theo James for the George Michael biopic. As far as I understood it, it was because of the casting choices for Rocketman and Bohemian Rhapsody. So would you like to elaborate a little bit on your thoughts about the way representation of queer identity should be done?
Well, it's a tricky thing to say because, first of all, it was just a comment on a Instagram post and it turned into like this headline. I'm like, oh my God. But it's an important conversation, I think, and it's not a new conversation. I think, and also no shade to Theo James. He's a great actor. He was amazing on White Lotus. And I just think at this point, so many doors have been closed to queer people in that space for so long. And it's amazing that at least the stories are now being told, about fictional queer characters and our heroes. I don't think that only gay people should be allowed to play gay parts. I don't believe that. I think there have been incredible performances by straight identifying actors in queer roles that I wouldn't imagine anybody else doing. I mean, I just was promoting a movie at Sundance, and the lead character is a gay character, and a straight actor, Scoot McNairy, plays him, and he's unbelievable in this role. It's so touching and wonderful. So I'm not saying no blanket statement, no straight actors playing gay characters. I just would love to see a little more balance. I think there are a lot of queer actors in the scene, but I don't think that many of them are invited to audition for or take on the role of a lead character in a film. Definitely not very often that you see a straight character being played by a gay actor. And so therefore, the few gay icons that are being profiled in major motion pictures, maybe it would be nice just to see a casting director take a chance on a queer actor. There's more to it than just the best actor for the role. There's a lot of politics that go on in Hollywood. All my friends that are actors that are queer feel similarly. Most of the ones that I've talked to, they feel like, I just want to be given a chance. I want to be invited into the room, and that doesn't happen as often. So I think, especially when interpreting a gay icon, we have only so many heroes that have transcended and become mainstream icons, like George Michael. It would just be nice to see somebody that identifies as that in that role. We've done so much in terms of recognizing, in the past couple of years alone, in America, just recognizing equality as a really important factor with like representation and identity. I mean, you look at Black actors now, finally starting to be given their chance to elevate. There's some incredible art coming, from people that identify, and I don't know. I just feel like the awareness of this appropriate casting exists on so many other levels. So I'd love to see it applied to the queer community.
The whole discourse surrounding this kind of identity politics, I feel like what you're saying is it's just first step in, or just a step in the right direction. Do you feel there are other steps that need to be taken, except from what you've already said, like opening doors and giving opportunities to queer people?
I think that is the first big step. I mean, I think, someone might say, well, there aren't any big enough queer actors to take on a major leading role in this movie. Well, we got to start somewhere. I mean, how to become a movie star, you got to be given some opportunities. So, I think it's up to the powers that be to maybe take it upon themselves to elevate some people, because there are definitely queer actors with the acting ability. Some incredible queer actors. And actually, the funny thing is, in TV, I think you are seeing more of that. In television, there are more chances being taken with casting and stories. And so it'd be nice to see that sort of slowly start to translate into, the box office. And ultimately, I realized that, Hollywood and major motion pictures, they do have to sort of respond to the public and what the public wants and what they don't want. So that is a part of it too. It starts probably more with society, and then that could equate to success in Hollywood.
Like, there's obviously a market for this kind of representation? You said it, the biopics are there, the icons are getting representation, some representation. So
yeah, and the stories are being told. So therefore, why can't a queer actor play that part? I mean, a queer actor is not often cast in a straight icon. So why can't they at least give us the queer ones? You know what I mean? I mean, it seems logical to me. You see handy capable roles, you know, someone that's deaf being played by deaf actors now. You see, you know, obviously the ethnic identity of people like that is appropriately casted. And when it's inappropriately casted, there's a lot of uproar about it. So, you know, I think the same logic sort of applies. I think to maybe an outsider who's outside of the queer community, they might look at this circumstance and say, well, but why, you know, a straight actor playing a gay role is fine because, you know, it's just acting, you know, that's the definition of acting. But I think when you're talking about a minority group who's been sort of held back and ostracized for so long, that creates a certain experience, and only queer people are going to understand that experience fully, you know? So why not bring that into a role to make it even more authentic?
Identity does matter and the experiences do matter. So I personally feel like the point which shouldn't matter anymore should not even come.
I think the goal is that none of this should matter, but it does right now. Yeah. And I think to anybody that's young and growing up queer, you know, and imagines or dreams of a career on the screen, it would be nice to give them some inspiration and some hope that, hey, guess what? Yeah, you're queer, but you can also be successful. I think that's a message that is really important to get out there. And you know, for me, the parallel is being in the music industry. And when I came out onto the scene in 2009, in the US, in pop music, there weren't any of my contemporaries that were openly gay. And that made it a bit tricky because it was like we were trying to like push for something that some people weren't ready for yet. But I was definitely part of a wave of artists that kept pushing. And now you look at the music industry and we have artists that are major stars that have major hits that are queer and they're open about it. You know, you look at Sam Smith and Kim Petras having this big smash single and getting Grammy nominated. Lil Nas X has been really pushing it and being daring. You have a lot of people that are out there now able to be exactly what they are. So it's all about those steps you have to take to get to that point. And I think for big box office movies, I think that's their challenge.
And you have a big part, I think, in getting the message out there and opening doors. Do you feel responsible to continue with this?
Yeah, I mean, I believe what I believe, and I'm passionate about what I believe, and I like to share my ideas. You know, I think that's part of the perk of being, you know, having a public platform is that you're going to get people to listen to you. So you might as well talk about things that matter, you know, that need to be highlighted.